Hey, what's up everyone? It's Duskmos, and today we're taking a look at the Dystorpia from Noise Engineering. So for this special launch day episode of Signal Colors, we're looking at the Dystorpia, which is a digital fuzz and overdrive pedal that has quite a wide range with a lot of options here to sculpt your sound from just kind of like a nice sort of overdriven boosted signal with a little bit of maybe like bass and some filtering going on, or something really shredded and raspy and gnarly. And it's cool, you can really go from mild to wild with the Dystorpia. You may know Noise Engineering from the modular world. They're known for doing a lot of really interesting modules for Eurorack. And this is their first foray into the pedal format, and I have to say it's a good first showing. I'm going to go over the controls and the feature set of the Dystorpia, but first, here's a little bit of what you can expect to hear today. Okay, so first up, you've got the gain control. Gain is just the volume of your input, but you can push signals a little bit more by ratcheting that up. And the sort of fuzz character will change based on that input. It's sensitive to that. But there's a wide range here, so you can go from just a little bit of gain if you have something that's going in that has a lot of output, or you can really crank it and bring up levels like a guitar where you maybe need that. I'm going to skip fold for now and come back to that. But next is blend. You can go from fully clean to fully wet. The clean still gets impacted by the EQ here of the mid band and the tone, as well as the gain, but it's just the clean signal that isn't impacted by the fuzz layers. I'm also going to skip this one, pura or pura. Mid-band and tone are the next two, and these are your general EQ type sounds. They're filtery, filter-esque. But what's interesting with tone, if you ratchet it all the way up, it'll boost the lows and the highs, kind of do a scooped mids thing, but then that really gives space for the mid-band to really hear that come into play. So fold is a wave folding control, which basically instead of clipping, it just folds the wave back in on itself and will lead to some interesting harmonic play. But fold is really growly and snarling, just like a little bit more of the, I guess I would say, the intense version of the fuzz on the Dystorpia. So pura is the more traditional kind of fuzz effect, described in the manual as a buzzsaw fuzz that shifts the negative part of the waveform into the positive to create that flavor. And so between these two, you can really mix up the type of fuzz you're getting by, only using one, or the blend that you get between the two. It's pretty flexible. Next up, you've got this doom toggle that goes from off to sub to blown. Sub adds an octave down, so just can pick up more of the bass end of things. But then blown takes that same octave down, but ratchets up the volume, so it starts to shred the signal. It sounds a little bit like a blown speaker, which is pretty cool, but that interacts a bit with the fuzz controls as well. And you'll hear it kind of just like rips even more, if that's possible. So yeah, it gives you another option to just make things even more harsh and fuzzed out. Next, you've got the envelope mode that goes from dynamic to gate. Dynamic kind of comes in and out with the intensity of your playing or the sounds that you're feeding it. But then gate is just more of like a hard chop. And it says in the manual that this is good for cutting out hum and things like that. There's no input signal, you're going to get no output from the Dystorpia. Down here, you've got the bypass foot switch. It is soft latching, so it's easy for desktop use. And over here is really cool. It's actually a freeze feature that will do a little micro loop of what's in the buffer and have that play in the background of your new input. And that's a lot of fun. You can do some interesting things with that, freezing some of your input and gives you a little bit of a bed of sound to do other things on top of. On the right, you've got an expression input, which is mapped to the tone control. And if you're using it with an input, you can set the range basically of the tone by dialing in the knob where you want it. Of course, you've got an input and an output and a 9-volt power jack. All right, now that you know the layout and what the controls do, let's check it out. Let's hear it with some gear. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got the Dystorpia as well as the Plumbutter from Ciat-Lonbarde. And this is one of my favorite instruments, even though you never see it on the channel. But that's because it's really exploratory and not so much immediate. And so, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the best thing to demo with, but I thought it was really cool here when I was just kind of doing some off-camera testing of this. And I just really like the way they work together, so I thought, yeah, let's bring it into the demo. Anyway, I'm coming out stereo, but I'm actually using the split meld from Old Blood to go into a mono cable into the Dystorpia, and then out into the TX6 from Teenage Engineering, and then out into the camera. The Plumbutter has hard panned outputs, so like a couple of the instruments or a couple of these channels here are only on left and a couple are only on right, so it makes sense to merge them into a mono signal. All right, enough about the setup. Let's hear this thing. So right now, because there's no really play pause, you can just enter in notes into the shift register here, or really triggers, I guess. I just have it muted, so I'm going to unmute it. And that's our beat. This is the mixer, so I can control different elements. And then I've got the deer horn, which is a radio controlled sound over here, which it's muted a second, but now it's on. Which I may or may not bring in. And we've got a little bit of reverb on the TX6. Just to give it a little bit more liveliness. All right, let's engage the Dystorpia. So right now I have it set on basically what I feel like for at least this instrument, the most similar to the clean signal. So we can start exploring from fresh. So here we go. One thing I actually like is to start with actually just using this as a boost. So actually as you up the gain, you just get a nice boost. But you also can implement the tone controls at this stage without having any fuzz going. So we have the pura, but I think it's pura, and the fold down, which those are our fuzz controls. You can hear you get a really good ability to filter here. With tone all the way up, you get boost in the highs and lows. And then it gives the mid band the most like impact that way. But already you can hear, find just some nice sculpting going on. So again, back to clean. Ended up pretty similar to where we started, but you start to blend in some of the fuzz here. Even though the fuzz is turned down, this is just blending in like what would be the fuzz channel. You can hear it actually has a really nice sort of drive character. Which is really cool on its own, even without the fuzz. So from here, one thing I feel like I'd like to demonstrate right now is the doom control, because you can actually really hear it without the fuzz going on. Yeah, so right now it's off. We can switch it to sub. And if you have the proper headphones or speakers going, you could really hear almost like a bass line kicked in. I'm gonna turn it off. That's without it. And that's what it brought in, which I think sounds really cool. Now you can go up to the next level, which is blown, which takes that same sound but really boosts the volume of it, so it kind of comes in a bit more aggro. And it's supposed to kind of emulate like a blown speaker. It really does. Of course, like anything to do with drive or fuzz, it's really dependent on the input gain. So you can get different sounds, either more aggressive or less, but here you can hear it in the blown as they input more gain. That blown effect is more prevalent. I'm gonna go back to the bass level, or the sub level. I have the blend still favoring the clean side, but let's start to bring in some of the Pura. The snare decay. I have the envelope on dynamic. I just turned it off. You also turn it on gate. You don't notice much of a difference with gate because there's so much note information coming in. Bypass. Let's leave it about there, and I'm going to work on some of the wave foldings. Let's hear what that sounds like. It's a little bit more of like a saw, like a ripping. Really aggressive. Of course, you could filter it down. Hear it on just this. We'll go with more Pura. We'll go with some ripping. We'll go with blown. On the Pura. Yeah, I just want to say Pura. I think it's all my Spanish classes. blending in just a little bit. Bypass. As you can hear, is just that really low bassy tone. Hopefully you can hear it. Definitely can now. Taking the envelope down to the off position, you hear more of the noise coming in. We go up to envelope to dynamic, and it remedies that. So that's a really cool feature as well. Oh, and just fold here. Go with just the sort of synthy sound here. So it sounds like clean. Do a little tweaking over here. We'll go with that. Let's see what it sounds like with the Dystorpia. Wavefold is all the way up. Sorry, I need some Pura in. Back the gain down. Now I have everything ratcheted up. It's probably gonna sound pretty gnarly, but I'm gonna turn on the synth sound. It's like the little antenna control, the ear horn. Really kicking that bass up. Just barely blending some in. Keeping this gain nice and juicy. So again, we have the bass up with the sub on Doom. Let's turn off that. Let's bring it back. That's where they gone. Let's bypass. That's what we're working with. So clearly adds a ton of texture, boosts, and I feel like it even feels like it compresses a little bit. And there we go. That is the Dystorpia with the Plumbutter 2. Okay, so I've got the Dystorpia here with the Roland TR-606, the vintage drum machine, coming out mono, going into the Dystorpia, and then out mono into the TX6, where I have a little bit of reverb engaged, and then out into the camera. All right, let's go ahead and hear it clean. I'm going to run through a couple patterns. And this is what we're working with. So go ahead and engage. Right now it's really kind of set to just like a mild boost. I've got the envelope set to dynamic. Doom is off. Let's just go ahead and introduce some sort of the classic fuzz here, the Pura or Pura. Now I've got the blend all the way down. So already right there, you just get a little bit of a touch of extra texture, which is really cool. I've also got the fold up. Let's turn the fold down. So right now we've really just gone through like 5 different tones, which is really cool. There is drive in the circuit here, even when you have both the Pura and the folding down. Especially when you double it up with the gain. And back that off a little bit. But like even that's really cool. And you'll hear, you kind of lose a little bit of the low end when this kicks in, which most fuzzes do. You can kind of fix that with tone if you want. You get a little bit more that way, but you lose the top with that. If you crank tone up, it actually scoops the mids and boosts the low. But the ultimate is to turn on Doom in sub mode, and then you can hear right away. It really brought back that punch, which is really cool. Introduce some tom there. And a little bit of cymbals, which sounds like noise. Blend in some of the clean. Let's get some folding back in the mix. And I go full blown with both of these maxed out here. In fact, let's really go blown and engage the blown. It gives that screaming blown speaker effect. Pulled out the wave folding. Backing up the pearl a little bit. Now it's just the toms. Let's bypass. Very synthy. Go off the blown mode into just sub mode. Get it really thin if you want and do that kind of almost like telephone style. Well, that really slams. At the same time, it sounds more electronic, but also like in synthy, but also a little bit more acoustic somehow. And then bypassed. Crazy difference. Let's try another pattern here. A little slower, a little bit more space between the notes. Let's hear it. Interestingly here, the cymbals seem to be kind of like below the threshold or something. Which is kind of nice. Kind of sneak through without getting all fuzzed up. Ah, okay. No more. I guess because I had to blend a little bit clean. Let's go just folding, no Pura. So we maxed out the folding. Actually, this is a good time to demo the freeze. So this is really cool. There's a infinite freeze here. So we catch something. Kind of wild. Let's bring in some more drum sounds. Really fun. You have to do momentary if you just hold it. Let's try another pattern here. Back to clean. Try without any cymbals or hats. Alright, here we go. Pretty wild stuff. and then back to clean. That's the Dystorpia destroying the TR-606. Okay, now for something pretty radically different. I'm going to demo this with some vocals that I'm going to have captured live through the TP7 from Teenage Engineering, the really cool little portable recorder, and then have that run through the Dystorpia into the TX6 and then out into the camera. We got a little reverb on the TX6. As I mentioned, I'm going to use this as sort of a live mic that's a separate signal chain from the one that I'm using to record my voice right now. And we're just going to get into some shenanigans and see what this does. So right now I have the Dystorpia engaged. I'll engage the TP7, and when it goes into the monitoring mode, you can hear, now this is running through the Dystorpia and in with the reverb on the TX6. So I have the blend all the way down, but immediately, I can ratchet it up and you get that super crunchy, almost like distorted radio sound. You're doing kind of like a blown speaker. We've got sub on. I can turn sub down. But what's really cool is even this like cleaner mode, you can use the freeze and go
After that.
Using the playback speed control here. It was like some meditative didgeridoo going on. Okay, now I'm just going to record like a, I don't know, like a vocal little riff here and just have that loop, and we'll see what that does. Ba ba da 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 ba da 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 ba da da. Let's hear that. Ba ba da 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 ba da 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 ba da da. Ba ba da 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 ba da da ba da da. Ba ba da 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 ba da da ba da da. Pretty crazy. Could do some fun, wacky vocal stuff with this for sure. Interestingly, you can also play this no input. with just a little bit of this kind of action. You could freeze. Pretty cool. You're basically turning it into a synth on its own just by tapping a cable. Pretty interesting. Okay, so what do I think about the Dystorpia? Well, I've had it for a number of weeks now, and it's been really fun using it to just shred and nasty up some signals. And I found I really even like it just as a like a clean boost. But I say clean, it's still a little bit dirty, but that's kind of cool. There's saturation in the blend. You can use the mid-band tone controls to give yourself a little bit of a sculpting EQ on top of that boost, and then still even engage the freeze. And it's pretty wild because you can do all that stuff and not even touch the fuzz. I'm a fan of the Doom on sub mode. Pretty cool to be able to bring in some of that bass that you tend to usually lose a little bit of with fuzz. I like that you can blend in just a little bit if you want, or go hog wild, and the dynamic kind of change between the two different versions of the fuzz, how that or those interact with each other. Pretty cool. And the freeze effect, that's wild. Like I wouldn't ever expect to see that on a fuzz pedal, so it's really cool that that was thrown in as well. I think it sounded really good on the Plumbutter, for example. Really kind of leveled it up a notch and made that, which sounds little, not really tame, but like just a little bit, not as interesting, and turn it into something extra interesting by adding all that extra texture and sizzle. It was pretty fun on vocals. That was kind of a wild one. So again, I think that kind of speaks to the versatility a little bit. Of course, on the 606, it sounded cool. Definitely took those from just a little bit of like a bog standard drum machine sound to something a little bit more destructo. And that's always pretty fun. One super random note, because this is a pre-release version, these little chunky asterisks won't be there on the shipping version. That's just to delineate the different versions. Oh yeah, and this definitely shouldn't go without saying. This thing is built like an absolute tank. It's insane. It's got a really good heft to it. I'm telling you, like it's the heaviest pedal by size. Not in a bad way. It's just wild because I feel like a lot of them end up being lighter than you expect them to be. This feels like it's almost like a solid block. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, I definitely think this will hold its own in like it's a touring situation or whatever. I think it could withstand a lot. It seems pretty daggone durable. I want to thank Noise Engineering for sending out the Dystorpia for me to take a look at on the channel. Really appreciate it. Really fun. Really stoked to be included in the launch. And I think this is really exciting. I'm looking forward to what other devices and pedals they come out with in, a stomp box format for us non-Eurorack folk. If you're interested in finding out more about the Dystorpia, check out the link I've put in the description. Definitely let me know what you think about it in the comments. All right, that's going to be it from me. Thanks for checking out the Dystorpia with me today. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.